In today's video, I am testing out the new Sigma 30mm 1.4 contemporary lens and the 56mm 1.4 contemporary lens on the new Fujifilm X-T5. So a little background on why I'm doing this. Well, I posted a review of both of these lenses recently. Thank you to Sigma for sending me these lenses to check out, and also to F-Stoppers, who I write for, some of you guys know, and that they sent them through F-Stoppers, so I appreciate all of that support. But I had a couple of comments on these videos, and that's what I want to address today. Number one, someone asked me, Pete, would you use these lenses at a professional photo shoot? And then number two, someone asked me, Pete, I'd like to see how these lenses pair with the X-T5. So in this video, we're going to do both of those things. Now, before I continue, I want to tell you also that I'm recording this video on the X-T5 with the Sigma 30mm 1.4 contemporary lens. So we're gonna see how it does with the autofocus as well. If it's hunting and, you know, kind of pulsing, we're gonna see it together. I have no idea. So hopefully it's not. I already did tweak the AF settings a little bit, so I think that may make it better. If it makes it worse, I'll continue to tweak those until I get it where I like it. But before I show you some of the images that I took with the lenses, I want to talk about their handling and their performance. And what I've done is I've used these lenses at a shoot in my studio with all my lighting and all of that. And then I used on the field as well, not for a professional shoot, but for a family shoot with my family. And my lovely wife reluctantly agreed to model for me. And I'm really happy with a lot of those images. We're not gonna pixel peep really or anything like that, but we are gonna look at some of the images. Okay, so let's talk about the handling. Now, one of the things I love about these Sigma contemporary lenses is that they're super small. I recently reviewed the 18 to 50 2.8, and I was really blown away by it, not just because the quality was great and it handled well and it was made well, but really because of how tiny it is. So if you are someone who wants small size lenses where you don't want to carry around a lot of bulk with you, if you have the camera with you all day long, if you're a street photographer, any of this kind of stuff, or if you're just going out for a day with your family and you want something that's not going to feel like you're carrying a huge lens, the 30mm and the 56mm are going to be two great choices, I think, for you, because both of them pair extremely well with the camera. They don't feel big, they're not big or bulky, and they're easy to carry around with you as like a simple one lens setup. 56mm is actually a little smaller than the 30mm, but obviously that's more towards portraits, whereas the 30mm is going to be a little bit more well-rounded, I think, for just a day out if you wanted to take something that was a little wider or like a group photo. Either one of them pairs very nicely with the camera. Here's another thing about these lenses that you should know. They have weather sealing, they have metal mounts, and overall the build quality is excellent. One thing that you may notice if you use different lenses or third-party lenses with your camera is that sometimes it just doesn't pair well with the camera in a physical way. So not only the size, but also just the build quality and the feeling of the materials. And one of the things that I really like about the Sigma contemporary lenses is that they fit nicely in fit and finish. It doesn't feel like you're using some of the third-party lenses. And I think Sigma's done a really awesome job with that. Autofocus. Well, as I mentioned, we're gonna see as we watch this video together, we'll both see how the autofocus does on video. But now, speaking from a still standpoint, and obviously I know the X-T5 is really, even though the video capabilities are awesome, it's really for still photographers. What I can tell you in my experience is that I was very impressed with the autofocus capability on the X-T5. These lenses focus fast, they're very accurate, and I've used them even in a studio situation with very low-key lighting, and I was using continuous lights too. So I had really all the studio lights off at one point, and I did a night shoot, and the camera picked up the eye. It focused very well. So that's a testament, obviously, to the improved autofocus system on the X-T5, as well as the autofocus performance of these lenses, which are fast and quiet. Keep in mind also that I'm filming this video, right now it's January 18th, and I haven't done any firmware upgrade on the X-T5. I'm pretty sure they're coming out very soon with a very big increase in the autofocus capability. At least that's what I've heard through all the typical rumor sites that we like to check out. Handling is good. I like it. They handle well. They pair well. Autofocus is good. I have no qualms on any of that. All right, now let's talk about image quality. So now I'm going to go to my computer. We're going to check out all of these images in Capture One, and we'll just talk for a minute about the quality, and I'm going to show you some of the awesome results that I've got. And then you can decide, is this a lens, or are these lenses, and even is this camera something for you? I already told one of the commenters, I said, yes, I'd have no problem using the X-T5 and also these lenses for my professional headshots or portrait work. You know, they look great. All right, so I'm here in Capture One, and I want to show you some of the images, and I might zoom in on them a little bit, but we won't do any crazy pixel peeping for this particular review. I just want you to see some of the quality and what the results are you can get with the X-T5 and the Sigma lenses. So these lenses, these images of my photographer friend Kat are taken with the X-T5 and the Fuji 56mm, and Catherine's an awesome photographer and cool person. I'll link her stuff in the description below, and so you can check her out, follow her on Instagram and all of that good stuff. But let's look at some of these photos. I think the quality is excellent. Now this series was taken with a Nanlite continuous light in an octabox, and then I used my Westcott Flex Kit panels as well. Like I said, we'll zoom in a little bit. We'll go 100%. But you can see lots of sharpness. Now her eyes are obviously closed, so it really grabbed her lashes, and you can see I focused on her right eye here. And I like to use shallow apertures a lot, so in this particular image you can see at the bottom here it's 1.4. So really this is going to be super focused. Here's another. We'll go 100%. Check it out. Eyes are sharp. Now, one thing I will say is, are we, with these giant eyelashes, she had on these giant lashes, are we missing the eye? I think maybe in some of them we're getting the eyelash more than the eye, but I've been looking really closely at eyeballs because people always bring this up, and I don't think, like, you got to be careful because an eyeball doesn't have a super hard edge, and sometimes I feel like the eye might look a little bit slightly out of focus, but it's not. So just keep that in mind if you're going to pixel peep eyeballs. That's been my sort of experience with it. Having said that, I do think that Fuji sometimes is still going to grab the eyelash. So in my last video, I said that I'd done I did a session for a client with the X-T5, and there was about 13 out of 300 images, or somewhere around there, 15 out of 300 that were not sharp. And it kind of bothered me because with my Canon, everything was sharp. But I tweaked the settings since then, and now pretty much everything was sharp in these last few sessions I did, which was cool. I was happy to see that. But basically, I went back to shooting on continuous. So I have the camera set to C, and then I have eye tracking and tracking enabled. And then I just used it in the general mode. I haven't really tweaked it beyond that. And I think any of us who've used Fuji cameras for a while, we all know at this point that sometimes you have to tweak the settings. It's not like the Canon right out of the box is going to focus this. You don't have to think about it. You just put it on the mode. Still, even with the X-T5, I feel like you still have to tweak it just a little bit. And hopefully it's going to get better, like I said, with firmware updates. Here's a cool kind of moody portrait that I did. Now, what I'll do in my own studio work, I love moody portraits if you've looked at any of my stuff. But check it out. It's super sharp. There's lots of detail. I have no problem with any of that. It's a massive amount of detail. The color is beautiful. But I like to shoot real moody. And so I need a lot of dynamic range in my work, because what I'll do is a lot of times I will color grade. And so when you're color grading, you do need to be able to lift shadows and then put them back in. But like if I totally remove the shadows here, you see it keeps all of that detail. So that's really cool to see. And again, remember, this is a Sigma 56. I think it's doing an admirable job. Here's another. And I had her at a bunch of different angles and poses. Here you can clearly see, and this is what I was saying before, the eye is definitely in focus, but like an eye doesn't have, your eyeball doesn't have sharp edges. So I think sometimes it might look like it's not in sharp focus to people when it really is. You can see the catch lights are super sharp. And if I pull the shadows out of this one too, you can really get all of the detail in the eyeball there. Pretty cool. And I had like a flag I was using in the front there. So it was pretty challenging, the lighting situation in this particular session that I was throwing at the camera and the lens, and it really focused excellently. I have no complaints. It just did a good job. There's nothing here that I would say it's not going to focus. But again, this isn't an autofocus video. This is about the Sigma lens on the Fujifilm. This, another untouched. These are all unretouched. This is what I captured with my basic lighting setup the way it was. I would have no problem with any of this for clients. I like that one, is pretty cool. So we did a bunch of sort of moody portraits, and then sometimes, like here, it looks like this eye is in focus when I probably should have had, or maybe not. No, I'm wrong. This eye is in focus, yeah. So what I usually do in my work is obviously the eye that's dominant towards the frame. If I'm shooting wide open like this, I want that eye to be in focus. And so I still don't think the interface is quite as good. Hopefully they're gonna, in the update, they'll change some things about that. Just the interface of the Fuji autofocus, but the Sigma focused excellently. Now, after we did some of these moody portraits, Kat and I then got behind my more sort of beauty lighting that I learned from my mentor, Peter Hurley, and we just did like a nice even light and took some beautiful headshots. Now, I'm shooting higher here than I normally do. Those who know me know that I usually don't shoot down on people, but Kat preferred this, and she's a photographer too. So I was going with some of her guidance. We were kind of figuring it out together. What I love about this is that the colors are spot on with the Sigma lens, and the Fuji. The color is beautiful. I don't want it to look like a color cast, and I prefer things slightly on the cooler side, and this to me looks beautiful right on the screen. No changes. This is with the Westcott Flex kit, and I usually have my white balance. It's sometimes when you import it in C1 it changes it a little bit, but on the camera it's at 4800, but you can see here it's a little bit cooler from the levels there. Okay, so before we move on, I just want to show you one of the final images that I took of my friend Kat, so you can get an idea of what my portrait work will look like. And you can see that obviously I like drama in my portraits. I go for a lot of shadows, and in this particular setup, what I did is I had a hard light on Catherine, so it's rather a hard look. And then I color graded it in Affinity Photo. So my point is that doing everything that I normally do in my studio, I was very happy with the X-T5 and with the Sigma 56. Okay, at this point, I'd like to show you some images of my wife that I shot. And then this was on Sunday afternoon. We went to the park. I just dragged my family out, and it was freezing cold, and my wife was gracious enough to model for me. And we just took a bunch of shots, and now all the shots on this roll, all of the shots from this session were taken with the Sigma 30mm. So I had the camera in, these are all raw files, but I had the camera on, I think, nostalgic neg or classic neg for some of these. But some of these are unedited, and then some of them I tweaked a little bit, so you're gonna see, I'll tell you the difference. But check this out. I mean, the quality, again, it's beautiful. I really like the quality. The colors are beautiful. It's a little bit cool. Like I said, I do like the coolness, but the sharpness, the detail is really quite nice. And it definitely got her eyes here. The focusing worked well. And I also like the bokeh on this lens. It has a very pleasing bokeh. again, this is unedited. I didn't do anything here, straight out of the camera. And you can see her eye is definitely in focus. If I pull out some of the shadows, then you can really get like this is obviously not good to pull out all the shadows like that. The image isn't gonna look good, but you can see a little bit more of the clarity there. She's not gonna like that I'm zooming in on these images, so don't tell her. Okay, beautiful, I love this. I love shooting with the sun directly behind my subject, obviously, because it gives him that golden glow. And the lens did do a very good job of controlling artifacts. I love this photo. That's my little precious daughter, and she's got her little pink camera. So, and again, this is unedited, this particular one. You can see here I'm at f4, 1/500th of a second. ISO 400 on the 30mm Sigma lens, and it's not the most bokeh, right? Obviously, because I'm stopping down the lens too, and it's not a portrait lens. Really, a 30mm is going to be a 45mm equivalent, but it's very pleasing nonetheless. Now, this is one of my favorite images from that day, and here I did edit it. I didn't do a ton of stuff. You can see here, what I did is I pulled up the white balance. So I warmed it up. I wanted it to look really nice and kind of have those sort of fall vibes instead of a winter vibe. And then I pulled in, on the levels, I pulled in the darks. But I really like this image. It's one of my favorites. And I love the clarity of the lens and the 40 megapixel sensor. I know people were, early on saying, oh, it's too much for an APS sensor, too many pixels or whatever. And it's really fine. Everything looks sharp. It's very nice. I love that image, it's one of my favorites. And here's another where I'm shooting into the sun without the sun behind us. I did not have the lens hood on either for these because I just forgot to put it on. That's another thing to keep in mind. Here you can see the sun kind of gleaming in on the side here. And you see in the corner here we have some of those artifacts happening, but it's very controlled, and I don't have any weird spots on the faces in any of the photos, which is something that I appreciate. And again, I wouldn't probably use the 30mm so much for portraits, but I did want to try it out. That's why I purposely used the 30mm for portraits on this day. So there you go. That's basically it. To sum it up, I really like the Sigma lenses. I'm sorry I have to send them back to Sigma because I think they have a really nice place in the kind of work that I do. So if you don't want to spend $1,000 on the Fuji 56mm, even though it is obviously 1.2, not 1.4, but you want the higher resolution sensor, yeah, I think that you'd be very happy with these lenses. Now, do I think they're as good as the Fuji lenses when it comes to the overall quality and sharpness? Probably not quite there. And I have not been able to test the new 56 yet, so hopefully I will be able to get one of those soon and test that out as well, because I'm really excited to see those results on that sensor, to see what it looks like paired up with the new lenses that they say are optimized. But if you want an X-T5 or an XH2, and you also don't want to bust your budget on lenses, I think you should definitely look at these Sigma contemporary lenses. I hope that you've gotten something out of this video, and I hope you've enjoyed it. As usual, don't forget to leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know what experience you've had. And again, I'm hopeful that the video is going to be super sharp. We're not going to have tons of pulsing and out of focus bits, but we might. And then if we do, then we know Fuji still has some work to do in their camera video autofocusing. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Every one of you subscribing to the channel, it means a lot to me. I really appreciate it. I appreciate all of the positive feedback I've gotten on the channel. And I'm going to continue to do some videos on my beloved Fuji gear and maybe some stuff on portrait work and all of that. I do want to soon release a first impressions video of the X-T5. Now that I've been using it for a couple of weeks, I have a lot to say on it, mostly positive. And that's basically it. That's all I have for you today, my friends. So here's wishing you an awesome day, Don't forget to gently press that like button. No need to smash it, as always. And go out and take some great pictures today, and I will see you next time. Peace.